It's just perfect. It is exactly what you should do on a death metal record. Hello and welcome back once again to all of the goths, gays, theys, and metal fans of all other denominations. Today you will have the absolute pleasure of me showing you one of the best death metal records that I have heard come out in quite some time. Today we are going to be talking about the album Supraliminal by Nothingness. This album just came out on January 20th off of Everlasting Spew Records. Nothingness is a death metal band based out of the US in Minnesota. They are a pretty new band, formed back in 2018. They released their first album in 2019 and it was a very good record, but you could see that there were a few areas where they could improve, and since then they have gone back to the lab and really cooked up something special here. So let's just cut the chit chat and get right into it. The artwork for this album is just grotesque. It is just horrific to look at. The artist, Mark Vortalen, did an absolutely outstanding job with it. It really sets the precedent for this being just a nasty, vile death metal record. Because that's exactly what it is. This album, if you had to describe it in one word, it is nasty. It is vile to the core, but in all of the best ways. They didn't say, what's the heaviest record that we can make? They said, how can we make heaviness sound great? It really reminds me of Nightmares Made Flesh era Bloodbath. It is this really murky, brutal death metal aesthetic that is executed at such a high level that it just is, it sounds phenomenal. They waste no time getting straight into it. Curse of Creation, the opening track, hooks you in with this incredibly groovy riff that evolves 2 or 3 times before you even get into any of the vocals, and you're just immediately sucked in and dragged under the mud and murk. It is laced in this very deep, heavy chugging that covers everything in a layer of muck and grime, but when it is done in such a way that it's not too overwhelming. You go from the first track into a classic old school death metal banger, and then from that you hop into Catapulted into Hyperspace, which is just manic and crazed. It has so much shit going on. You are bouncing around so many different sounds. It incorporates I think the first kind of hints of this blackened sound that it will incorporate more throughout the album. It has a little bit of progressiveness in there, but it's not too much. It's not juxtaposed to anything. It all flows very well. And then at the end, it executes this incredibly discordant but captivating solo. And then from that, you go into track 4, which is Temple of Broken Swords, which is just a walk through the museum of extreme music history. You have an absolute incredible combination of death metal, grindcore, and black metal all on display in, I think, what's the longest song on the album, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like you are getting just enough of each one of these elements to feel satisfied. You are at this all-you-can-eat buffet and you are just getting the exact right proportions to where you don't have to go back for seconds. You might because the food is so good, but you're not lacking any of the options here. And then if all of that wasn't enough for you, the next track, Festering Abstraction, has just this amazing early deathcore breakdown on it at the very end of the song, and it's just some of the most head-bangable riffs ever. It rules. And then you bounce right off of this into more of these very groovy riffs like we saw off of Curse of Creation to open the album on the track Inviolate Viscera. And now we're a little over halfway through the record and they deliver something to kind of break the pace a little bit. The song Beacon of Loss is a little bit slower. It gives you a little bit more time to kind of digest everything. It leans much more into the black metal side of this record. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about this album is that it's not a blackened death metal record. It's not a pure brutal death metal record. It is just modern extreme metal. You have elements, you have entire songs of brutal death metal. You have entire songs of just black metal. You have songs where it blends the two. It's so unique, and I appreciated a lot the way that they can make it all fit together and make the sound of the album so cohesive. You know, these are adjacent genres in general. They have a lot of similarities, but the way that they still make it all blend together on the whole album is just really impressive. Beacon of Loss is the most black metal song on the album. It has moments where it kind of shifts between the two, but it is more of a black metal song than a death metal song. And it couldn't come at a better time. It really sets you up to close out the album strong with the last two tracks, The Anvil and Decimation Mechanism. The Anvil is just another one of those classic brutal death metal headbangers. It is one of the shorter songs on the album, gets to the point, does not waste your time. It's great. And then you follow that up with Decimation Mechanism, which it feels like you're building up to this epic conclusion, and then it delivers exactly what you need. And it is just this slugfest of beatdown riffs and heavy chugging, and just holds on to you and just beats the shit out of you until the very end. There is no wasted space at the end either. There's no fade out. It is an abrupt ending. It is exactly what a death metal record ending should be. It immediately jumps back into track 1. It's just perfect. It is exactly what you should do on a death metal record, especially a brutal death metal record. God, it is just the perfect ending. Barclay Olsen's vocal performance is outstanding. He blends these different genres together very well. This album is predominantly in this very bellowing, kind of growly, brutal death metal vocal style, but it's not that kind of like gurgly, like real nasty slam type of shit. It's just very tasteful, brutal vocals. You also get these moments of a more black metal style, like kind of shrieking vocals, especially on Beacon of Loss. When they decide to shift from one vocal style to the other, it is always paired up well with the guitar tone. That really heavy chugging is always paired up with the more brutal death metal vocals, and the sharper guitar tone is always matched with the black metal vocals. Phenomenal choices all around. The guitars sound great. The bass is a little less prominent than I would prefer. I like bass to be a bit more at the forefront of my compositions. That's a completely personal preference though. It is not lacking by any means on this record. It all sounds great. All the performances are great. It's really hard to find anything on this album that I didn't thoroughly enjoy, that I didn't really want more of. The album is 9 tracks, clocks in around 43 minutes. Yeah, I think the length is fine. I could see people maybe criticizing it for being a little bit long in certain areas, but I don't think it's a problem. There were so many moments on this album that I kept thinking to myself like, okay, this is good, but I'm ready for it to change, and it always delivered. I never got to a point where I was saying, okay, I'm kind of sick of this idea, let's go on to the next thing, because it does that for me. It really does such an amazing job at pacing throughout the record. It just bounces between so many ideas and it meshes it all together so well. The transitions are seamless. It's really rare to find an album that is so cohesive, that has so many ideas going on at the same time. Like the last record that I could think of that did this well was maybe All That Was Promised by Hath. And if you watch my top 2022 album review, if you watch my top 2022 albums, you would know that that was my number 1 album of the year. Maybe putting too much expectation on this album. Maybe I'm just really excited for the new year, but man, this is a special record. I just found this band earlier this month because of the singles that they dropped for this record, and I am just blown away. I am incredibly impressed by a band that just formed back in 2018 and is already producing something of this high quality. This is an absolute masterpiece. I cannot recommend you check it out enough. If I had to give it a rating, I don't think it's perfect. I think it's damn near it, though. I would give it maybe a 6.5 out of 6.66. You guys stuck around this far. Thank you for watching. What records would you like me to review next? If you enjoyed this, please feel free to drop a like, maybe subscribe. I would sincerely appreciate it. Lets me know that I should keep going and improving the quality of these videos. All right, everybody, take care, stay safe, be sure to love each other. I will talk to you all later.